this question, you just think about it in your head. When do people usually want to study, I'm saying a congregation, when do they want to study marriage and divorce? Right when somebody is about to get a divorce. When do they want to study the eldership? When we're having problems, we're in the middle of having a problem with the eldership, and when we're fixing to have a full-blown split. So, what's the best course of action? Everybody be studied up on it, have some familiarity with it before the problem comes, instead of us playing catch-up. So this is what the advertisement is. This is a book on church discipline, and it would make, I'm saying, when we have things that come up and things that need to be corrected, if we were all studied up on the matter, it would make it so much easier that we could just say, hey, this happened, we need to do this. A happened, we need to make sure that B is following through. Rather than a brother comes up to another brother and says, hey, this happened. They said, well, I didn't know that. I didn't think a thing about it. And instead of us always playing catch up, let's get, as we said in our Bible study a couple weeks ago, let's stay in the driver's seat. So it's called A Clean Church, and it's a study on church discipline. We've got, I would say, about 40 copies coming in. And pretty much, if we could say, trying to replace the cost, it's only $3 a book. So it's, and you can see it's a small little book. It's about 150 pages. And so far, it's pretty good. And of course, it's going to be filled with scripture. So this morning, we're going to, as I say, don't let me lose you on an illustration. And I will tell you that the one we're looking at this morning, you will say, I do not care a thing about that. But I'm telling you, it's really going to work towards something. So we're talking about spiritual investments. And I think that the song that just by chance our brother Floyd happened to lead for us this morning, I Want a Mansion. People spend their lives saving up for what? Dream home. We imagine everything that we want in it. Wives, they think about what we're going to do to the kitchen. We think about what the living room is going to look like. We're going to put up, what's his name? Billy Joel's got a song about Brendan and Eddie got married, and what'd they do? Water bed, carpet from Sears, paintings on the wall. Then what happened to Brendan and Eddie? Got a divorce. Make sure we got the house looking good. You don't work on your marriage. That's something coming from Billy Joel to make a song like that. But spiritual investments, and we all know about investing, don't we? You at least have the idea of it, and I'm saying, look, we bags of money, we get all these commercials. Hands, have y'all seen commercials for E-Trade? Okay, everybody knows what it is. They're telling you to put your money somewhere. Are you making your money make more money? J.P. Morgan, I would say that's way more known and years back than E-Trade. And then even this idea, some people would knock this. There are different personalities in investing. And some people are going to tell you, you need to put your money into this, you need to put your money into that. There's, I don't know how well known, he's pretty well known. And he actually makes the argument that aggressive saving is actually as valuable as investing. People will say, well, inflation's going to happen, your money's going to lose value. Look, if you're keeping your dollars, you've got money versus someone who doesn't even have their money. So the argument can be made, but we get it, don't we? And I'm saying we all have some idea of what we're doing in our future with our money. Now, it's just a sad thing that they say that the average American does not have $500 in a savings account. Why? And you would say, well, times are hard. It's not that. It's that people are, one, irresponsible, two, people are not content with how good we actually have it. How is it the case that we had the American dream years ago, and what happens to the American dream? It gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Parents say to their kids, we want you to have it better than we had it. I don't know that I'm going to say that to my kids because I had it pretty good. And I don't know that it's my job to then make it even better than what my parents did for me. Best thing we can do for our kids is make sure that they know the Bible. So let's look at this. Matthew 6:20. This is why we say making spiritual investments. And a lot of people are not going to think about the Bible this way. And it's just a sad thing. And I'm saying you could get paid once a week, you could get paid every 2 weeks, you could get paid once a month. Your bills come regularly. Your groceries deplete. You have to go to the store. So we have regular reminders of our money, cash flow, in and out. We don't have this regular reminder unless we make it ourselves about our spiritual investments. Matthew 6:20 says, "Lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal." So you basically know your bills are coming, and you get all these bills, and what do? You sit down with your bank statement and you say, how are we doing? We really do need to basically make some type of a thing. I'm saying we do sing a song, Count Your Many Blessings. We need to have something in front of us where we can gauge, how am I doing in my spiritual investments? Now, look at this. Here's our illustration. This is not really interesting, is it? But if you were going to make an investment and you're trying to figure out what's the best place to put my money, somebody's going to show you this. They're going to put it, basically the last elements are always going to be the same to some degree. +1 times this number over how many times you think you're going to get a return quarterly. Then you're going to then multiply it again by your quarterly again. How many years? I want to, let's say by 45 years, I want to have this amount of money. Do you care about that? Do you need to know how to do that? No. If you're sitting down with somebody, just say, look, tell me what I'm going to get in 45 years. Okay, they say, well, if you invested $2,000 and you got a 10% return every 4 months, quarterly, 45 years. What about this if they told you this way? Well, you could turn $2,000 into $170,000 in 45 years. Is that interesting to you at that point? Now we're saying, people will say that the average American may not have $500, but I'm saying if we had the idea that if I came up with $2,000 and in the next 45 years that it would become $170,000, I think I'd be saying, okay, we can get some $2,000 together. And you say, well, you may not ever see that $2,000 again. If it's working for me behind the scenes, that's fine. We will find some more ways to make our ends meet. So think about this. Y'all, stick with me now. Is this interesting? That part's not. Making money, that's interesting. But think about this now. This is an example. CocaCola stock is only $45. And for every share that you buy in the quarter, it's going to pay for your share. Let's say you have at the end of the year, your $45 is going to pay back $1.35. That's pretty good, isn't it? If you start building up, now let's think about this. Let's say every day at lunch you spend $6 because you eat out. If you stopped eating out, every week you could be buying a share of Coca-Cola stock. And by the end of the year, you'd have 52 shares. By the end of 10 years, you would have 520 shares that's paying you $700 annually. That's more money than you're getting in your savings account. Now, does it not sound like a pretty good idea to stop eating out at lunchtime? Why? Because that's working for you behind the scenes. And when you see this, you say, that's not very interesting to me. But when we start showing you the figures, that's interesting. Why? Because it's basically laying a base for your future. Now you say, man, I can do that easily. And when we see how easy it is, if we just would cut out eating lunch, instead we bag our own lunch, and we can start having more and more stocks to own and more dividends to take in, look what we then do. We say, well, I can do more than just cut out eating lunch. What can we do? I can buy a used car instead of one off the car lot. I got to say it, that's the worst investment you can make. Buying a brand new car, it drops 50% the moment it leaves the lot. In what world would we think that's a good idea? Smaller house, we have houses where we never go into some of our rooms. Somebody say, what y'all got in that back room? I don't even know. Less utility bill, if you got a smaller house, maybe. And think about this, Goodwill instead of a department store. Y'all, I used to hate on Goodwill. And then my wife started going to Goodwill. She found all these things that she sells on the internet. People want these Goodwill clothes. I said, let me check it out. I said to Che the other day, I said, you like this shirt? She said, it's okay. I said, whatever I had on, I said, you like this? It's all right. I said, all of it came from Goodwill. And she said, how about you do this, Caleb? When you get something that's not from Goodwill, you let us know. Otherwise, we know. It's cheap. And then you think about this, buy fewer groceries because we throw out a lot. That's a very simple thing, and that's a real issue. Milk goes bad, bread gets moldy. We had strawberries. I said, I want strawberries in my oatmeal. She said, they're already bad. We buy more than we need, and all of that comes around and we could say, save you some money. Isn't that easy? But when you make these type of comments to people about saving money, they don't hear it that way. They hear, man, I like eating at Chick-fil-A every day for lunch. I like doing this. They don't think about long term, but y'all, we've got to realize this. We have spiritual bank accounts. And I'm saying we could look at people and say, man, why are you doing that with your money? All the while, I would say God would look at us and say, why are you doing that with your time? Our time is the most limited, most precious asset that we have. Whatever the value of gold, the value of the American dollar, people talk about the American dollar backs all kinds of currency in the world. Look, your time. Who cares about the dollar? Matthew 12:35. Here is your bank account. A good man out of the good treasure of the heart bringeth forth good things, and an evil man out of an evil treasure bringeth forth evil things. Can we say this? Out of the people that are in this room, y'all are some nice people. But here's the thing. You could be even nicer than you are. People that know us, they say, I know those are pretty good folk. Guess what? We got how many more years to live in this world? You could get even better.
Amen.
And that's your spiritual bank account. You are building this up, and guess what? People take note of it. In the same way that people look today, look, that's not even a thing, is it? We look at some people and say, man, they rolling in it. No, they're not. They're up to their neck in debt. But people can look at us in a spiritual sense, and they could say, the congregation that meets at 120 American Legion Boulevard, they are rolling in it. And what do they mean? Good people. Good-hearted folk get better and better. And Philippians 4:17 says, not because he's talking about the people who sent funds to help his missionary work, not because I desire a gift, but I desire that fruit may abound to your account. Guess what? When they were giving their money away, their spiritual account was going up. Why? If you're putting yourselves into a realm like these people were, and they very well could have been, and in fact we know they are, because if you look at 2 Corinthians 8, the Philippians are the Macedonians in 2 Corinthians 8. And he says they gave beyond their ability. They put themselves into poverty. And what are they doing when they do that? They're putting themselves into a situation where they're going to have to really trust God to do what? Man, we don't necessarily know how we're going to make our ends meet. But think about this. They're going to heaven and the rest of the world is not. And they said, we got to help Paul get the message to these people. What does that mean? I know I've heard one individual, and I know other people are bound to have done it. He has died now, but when he was young, and I will say it this way, let's make a comparison to where people's minds are. I know other people do this. When this man was young, and he was in Bible college, he skipped meals to afford his books. And somebody would say, I don't know about that now. I don't know if I'm going to skip meals so that I can have this book, A Clean Church. I tell you who will do it. I know Mark is going to know him, Gary Player. There's an old golfer named Gary Player. He's Australian, and when he came to America, you know what? He had no money. And you know what he was doing? Skipping meals to afford clubs and golf balls. And he said when they played on the tour, they only got 3 golf balls for the week. Don't lose them. Now, if we can look and say, oh man, Gary Player, he's a great golfer. That is not as important as this. And you think about this, and we're going to get there. You've got goals, don't you? You want to buy a house. Financial advisors will tell you that's the number one investment you're ever going to make. And some people do. They buy their house and they make up in their mind, we're going to die here. It's the most important, it's the biggest one, but here's the thing. When you're looking at these goals, send your kids to college, maybe you want to go on a nice vacation, and everybody, unfortunately, another survey would say that the average time that a person even starts to think about their retirement is when they're 45. You're getting very close to retirement, start thinking about it now. But when you say, I've got these goals, what do you have to implement? Some type of a plan. Now think about this. Do we even have spiritual goals? I mean, I'm serious. When you think about, you sat down with your loved ones and you used to talk about this is what we're going to do, and man, won't things be great when we get to this place? What are our spiritual goals? I'm saying, really, y'all, you hear people talk about it, and I listen. People tell me this, I do not believe in them. When we're talking to denominational people, they said, I read my Bible how many times? Man, you read your Bible over 30 times and you still haven't found the truth? I'm really questioning those numbers. And that's just like I'm saying, I've heard somebody, not my tax man, I've heard another tax man, who had two buddies. He was doing taxes for both of them. And he said, that guy sold a plot of land, and he said he made this much money. And he said, and the guy doing the taxes said, I know he didn't make that much money. See what I'm saying? Somebody on the other side knows when somebody's really mixing up the numbers. People talk about, I read the Bible this many times through. There's not much evidence for that. But do we really have a desire? Think about this. It would be good. Why? Because then when you have all that information laid out, and Romans makes reference to David, you know where it is. When Romans makes reference to Abraham, you know where it is. When we're in our king study, and it makes references back to battles of Gibeah, you know where it is in the book of Judges. When it talks about, where these people came from, when it talks about in 1 Kings 11, where Joab slayed all the Edomites, you can find that. And you know where they are. Memorize, how about this? Memorize one scripture a week, and I'll tell you how to do it. You may not do it this way. I had a buddy of mine, he didn't like this way. Fine, have another way. Make an index card. And you have your index card. This one's a bit big to go in my coat pocket, but I know I got some small ones. You make an index card and you basically say, we're going to memorize one scripture a week, and by the end of the year, you've got 52 verses memorized. You know where I got that? Muscle and shovel. Randall, who taught Michael Shank the truth, memorizing one scripture a week. And what I'm trying to do is I don't want to just memorize. Let's say, for instance, I know what Acts 2:38 says, and I know you do too. But does anybody know what Jeremiah 13:23 says? I want to memorize the scriptures that I know denominational folk are going to use. Can the Ethiopian change his skin or the leopard his spots? Then may ye also do good that are accustomed to do evil. And these people try to take that and say that we're born in sin. And they say, well, if an Ethiopian's born with dark skin, he can't change it. And a leopard's born with spots and he can't change it. You must be born with a sinful nature because you can't change. I want to know these verses, so when they say Jeremiah 13:23, I know exactly where they're going. And it's an easy thing to do, isn't it? Just like cutting lunch out. You're saving $6 a day, which equals one Coke stock a week, which equals up again all kinds of money back. Just simply talking to more people about the church and the gospel. I'm saying, really? We hear about it, and I was talking to Ian. You can come up with any method that you want, and one of our very good friends, and I may have mentioned this recently, but I saw him do it on the golf course, and I saw him do it with people who were working at his house. Tree fell on his house. People came out to cut the tree up. And he just said to them, no pleasantries. Hey, how you doing? How are y'all feeling? Hot out here? Oh yeah, hot out here. None of that. If I told you these 3 topics in the Bible, which one would you think is the most interesting? And that's what he opened up with. Don't have to do all this stuff, just hit them with it. And every one of them said, they picked one of the 3. He would give one out. He said, the Lord's Supper, the kingdom, the resurrection, and they would pick one, and he'd start talking to them about it. Tithing, man, you're going to get it. Anybody's ready to talk about tithing. Just simply making it a point to talk to more people, teaching my family the truth. We had that discussion in Bible class. Oh, man. And we know they're family members. And think about this. With them being family members, do they really want to make you feel bad? Like when for instance, Leon brought it up. Leon's brother said to him, nobody else is getting on this stuff like you do, Leon. But do you think that his brother really has the intention of making Leon feel bad? That's his own conscience. And when I'm pointing here, I should be pointing here. That's his conscience, his mind. It's working on him. We could not say a thing. Hebrews 11 says that when Noah built the ark, his simple action of building the ark was condemning everybody else. Why? Because they weren't doing it. They weren't planning for the flood. Teaching our families, and think about this point, having a successful marriage. We as Christians need to be ready to tell people that, quote, a successful marriage is not just not getting a divorce. People can stay together until they die and not have a successful marriage. Why? 1 Peter chapter 3. They're not dwelling together according to knowledge. If the husband is not treating her the way she ought to be treated, as the weaker vessel, giving honor to her, and if she, Ephesians 5, is not giving reverence to him, that's not successful. Y'all just cohabitating.
We need to be able to give these to people, and we got to know where the scriptures are. And even the idea going back to going to Philippians chapter 4, increasing our contribution. Now think about this. You could do that the same way we said you could invest into the stock market. Cutting out lunch, cutting out different things. Everybody's going to have a different level. We know about the instance in the life of Christ where the widow woman brought 2 mites. It's just 2 mites, but it said she was able to give more than anybody else. And somebody might say, well, it's just 2 mites. That's the most she could give. And these should be our spiritual goals. And as we look at this, and we would say, anybody would be excited to do it about money. Why aren't we just as excited to do it about our spiritual life? Now, I would say this. It's just an awful thing, the world that we live in. But I'm saying, when we went to school, everybody went to the gym. And you know what everybody did? When we got together, you're in school with all a bunch of men. So everybody's comparing their muscles. And I'm saying, for individuals who were the most studied, what's their muscle? Right here. And how did everybody feel when we flexed our muscle up here? Man, get that out of here. Why? Because they weren't working that muscle out. But they're ready for this. Yeah, I'll show you mine. We are increasing ourselves where we should be. If you talk about, oh man, I'm going to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. Me too. But in a spiritual way. My muscles getting built. That's my spiritual goal. Why not? And anybody who wants to tear you down saying, well, you ain't nothing but a Pharisee. Well, what are you? If the idea to increase Bible knowledge makes me a Pharisee, tell me what you are. The Bible called them a sloth. Sluggard. What in the world? Now let's look at these points. Here's the problem. Y'all, it takes some serious, we're talking about your money, it takes some serious diligence. If you're driving the road with your window down, you're smelling every restaurant in town. And you're telling yourself, we got food at home. And what you got at home? You don't have what they got. But you know what? You're trying to increase your investment opportunities. You're trying to say, look, further down the road, we're going to be able to do this. And we pass it up. Oh, man, and they come out with deals. Burger King said if you get within a mile of McDonald's, turn your location on your phone, we'll give you a free Whopper. Can you believe that? And you're saying, but here's the thing, you don't just go in there and get a Whopper, do you? You get your fries. If you're Ariel, you get a milkshake. You get French fries. See, you just go to town and they know that. But here's the thing. We don't want to wait, and me especially. Instant gratification. I have Che order my books off the internet, and if she orders a Monday, I'm calling her on Tuesday saying, you know where those are? Are they at your house yet, Caleb? No. And then she said, well, then you know you don't have them yet. Instant gratification. Look at Luke 15. This is the prodigal son. He said, a certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. We want it right now. And what did he do? Wasted his substance, his entire inheritance. He goes out and he wastes it. I was watching a video the other day of a friend of mine, and I could see people making comments on the video that he was doing, and people said, man, they said, I wish that we could get to the book. They said, he says, this is where we're going. He turns and boom, he's there. And I've heard people say to my dad, we wish we could remember the scriptures like you do. Can I tell you what it is? I know that my dad has spent years doing it, and I know that my friend does it too. They spend time in the book. There is no such thing as, I'm saying in that realm, God-given ability. You got to be in the book. And people say, well, man, Johnny Robertson must have had all kinds of psychology courses. Talking to people, working with people, that's the thing. Reading the book, reading debate books, it's the effort, it's the diligence. People, and they think about this. If you talk to just about any financial advisor and you ask them, what's the secret? Because I want to get in on that. I want to know what the secret is. There is no secret. It's about being smart. It's about making good decisions. It's about using your time and your money wisely. There's no thing to just boom, blow up. Of course, you can come up with something. You can invent something. I'm saying one of our friends, Guy Dickinson, has a brother-in-law, man, who invented the sack that's inside your water heater. Everybody's got a water heater. Okay, if you want to do something like that, by all means do it. But I'm telling you this, I'm not counting on myself to make the next water heater. I'm going to be smart. Give me everything that should be mine. wasting it. If you want to have the ability in a biblical sense, you've got to make your spiritual investments, which means you're going to have to make a plan, and you're going to tell yourself, I'm sticking to that plan. We know we can do it. And I'm saying people, all kinds of accounts of what people can do, and look, I appreciate it. It's awe-inspiring what people can do. And I'm telling you that, like, these people, single mothers who work a job, go to school, I don't know how they do it. And we say, man, good for you, and we really mean it. But think about this. Are you helping your kids as a single mother? And I'm not trying to beat them up. They're doing it by themselves. But we got to help those single mothers say, look, this is really what's of value. You can give your kid every toy in the world, and when they grow up, they're going to look back at you and say, that was just stuff we didn't need. They need a parent's attention, time, and affection. So think about this. There's their problem. I want us now to have that in our mind, the investment, the spiritual investment. Now let's go backwards to the Old Testament. Let's look at an actual example of individuals who needed that instant gratification, who would not be diligent, who would not make spiritual investments. And you've got to do this when you're reading the Bible. You have got, as this is part of a spiritual goal, I want to do the things that these people did. And I do not want to be like these people. Now, if you're reading Genesis, an individual that you may not want to be like, and this is the thing, he's got his good traits, he's got his bad. Reuben did some bad stuff in the book of Genesis. Reuben did a very good thing in the book of Genesis. But when you move on later to his descendants, the tribe, in Numbers 32, look what they do. Now the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had a very great multitude of cattle. And when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that, behold, the place was a place for cattle, the children of Gad, the children of Reuben, came to speak unto Moses and to Eleazar the priest, and unto the prince of the congregation, saying, the country which the Lord smote before the congregation of Israel is a land for cattle, and thy servants have cattle. Wherefore, said they, if we have found grace in thy sight, let this land be given unto thy servants for a possession, and bring us not over Jordan. Book of Numbers. Do you know what's ahead of them? Now think about this. They're just wandering in the wilderness. This generation of people, they're just going to die out here. Deuteronomy, the second generation, are the people who get to go into the land. The book of Joshua, what do they have to do in Joshua? Full-on war with 7 heathen nations. And what are the people of Reuben and Gad saying? We don't want to go over there. We want to stay on the east side of the Jordan River. So what are they saying? We don't want to do the work. We want to get a land plot that we can call our own. We want an inheritance, but we don't want to go get it. When we make those type of decisions, the easy route, when we look at these things and we think it's good, it's beneficial, and y'all, you just got to mark it down as we're talking about our physical investments and our spiritual investments. These people let their physical investments get in the way. Where did God tell them to be? In the land of Canaan, which is going to be on the west side of the Jordan. And why did they not want to go over? We got a whole bunch of cattle, and this is some good land for a whole bunch of cattle. How about you kill your cattle and come with us and fight the battle? Don't nobody care about their cattle. Our stuff gets in the way. And I'm saying spiritual investments. Can I say this? And I'm not picking on anybody here. I'm saying Martinsville needs to hear this too. In our brotherhood, one of the biggest lectureships that they had was called the Denton Lectures. And it's in Denton, Texas. And you know what people did? People took their vacation time to be at the Denton Lectures. It is not beyond the realm of reality that members at this congregation and in Martinsville take their vacation during our 2-week tent meeting.
Man.
People would come to Denton in their RVs, they would set up, and they would be there. Why? We're about to have a spiritual feast. All our brethren coming down here, we're about to work together. It's not beyond the realm of reality. And you know what? People that don't do that, you're trying to do 2 things at once, and that's very difficult. Because I hear people during the tent time, and I'm saying, Somebody said something to me the other day when I said about pollen. They said something about cutting grass. I ain't got no grass to cut. I live in an apartment. I know not everybody's going to have that luxury to not have any grass to cut. But during tent time, I hear people say, got to get home, got to mow the yard. Your grass ain't going nowhere. We need your help. That grass will be there. And I'm saying, think about this. The American dream. How many of y'all have that push mower that you're manually having to crank that wheel that's slicing the grass? That is so old. Nobody's doing that anymore. Your grass ain't going nowhere, and we got it easy. We've got all kinds of opportunities. Look at this. You want it without the work. That's what Reuben said. We want the land without the work. Look at the hardship we put ourselves in. Look what Reuben did. Here is where Reuben is located. Right down here, the Red Sea. And right around here, underneath Benjamin, that's where Jerusalem is. Why is that significant? Every year, you've got to travel over to Jerusalem. You got the Red Sea right there in between, but then you got the Jordan River. Do you realize what they did to themselves? How do you just cross the Jordan River? You think you just, okay, here we go. I know that there are some places, there's a river that feeds into the Mississippi. It's called the Wabash River, and it goes up in Ohio. It's in Ohio, and at the very beginning, you could step over it. But now think about going down to the Mississippi. Okay, what I call it, Red Sea, that's the Dead Sea. But then, the Jordan River is feeding into it. Joshua 3, think about it. We know that when they had the Exodus, God parted the Red Sea. What did God have to do for these people for them to cross the Jordan River? They had to have the exact same thing happen again. If you read Joshua 3, God cut off the river and made it stand at a heap, and the people got to cross through on dry ground. It took a miracle for the whole crowd of people to get to cross. Look at Joshua 3:15. As they that bear the ark were come unto Jordan, and the feet of the priests that bear the ark were dipped in the brim of the water, for look at this, Jordan overflows all of its bank in the time of harvest. Now look what the Bible says. In Joel 2 and Leviticus 23, think about this. In the 14th day of the first month, that's the Passover. Look what Joel 2 says. Be glad then, you children of Zion, and rejoice in the Lord your God, for he hath given you the former rain moderately, and he will cause to come down for you the rain, the former rain, and the latter rain in the first month. What have they done? They have actually created an atmosphere for them that has all manner of obstacles just to come together on their feast day. You know what they're going to have to do? They're going to have to leave early. In order to beat the river, they're either going to have to leave early or they're going to have to come up with some big time methods of crossing that river. Now you think about this. What's crossing a river? Do we realize, and I'm saying somebody would say, well, don't they have boats? Do you realize how many people have died in the Mississippi River? And this ain't just a river, it's a flooded over its banks. This thing is torrential. And that's what they chose to do. Why? For their possessions. They have made it hugely difficult on themselves to just come and assemble. Think about this, y'all. This is what people say. They say to us, people use instrumental music in the Old Testament. What are they doing? They want us to bring something over from the Old Testament into the New Testament. Okay. You know what happened to an individual who could make it to the Passover and just simply chose not to? But the man that is clean and is not in a journey, and forbeareth to keep the Passover, the same soul shall be cut off from among the people. If you're able and you just don't show up, they're going to kill you. That's what to be cut off from the people, because he brought not the offering of the Lord into his appointed season. That man shall bear his sin. Now how about we bring this over? You want to bring over the instrumental music? Why don't we bring over some punishment methods from the Old Testament? You don't ever hear anybody saying that, but you've got all kinds of brethren skipping the Lord's Day. Why? They're on the J-O-B, making their physical investments. Where's their spiritual bank account? Very low. And you know what you can do? If you got a debit card, what can you do? You can overdraw, can't you? You can overdraw your spiritual bank account. You are praying to God, you ain't got nothing in there. And that's Proverbs 1. That's when he's laughing at you. Why would God look at us? We're not making regular deposit into a spiritual bank account. You ain't got no credit there. I'm saying we can be very smart about our money. Hebrews 10:25. Not forsaking the assemblies of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching. If you could look back at Reuben and say, man, that's a bad decision that Reuben made. We got some brethren making some bad decisions right now that are not coming to the assembly of ourselves. And think about this. They're not exhorting us. They're not fulfilling their responsibility to take the Lord's Supper with us, to have that communion, 1 Corinthians 11. But also, if we're not making up our contribution, 1 Corinthians 16, because we're out on the JOB, that is the same idea as robbing God. That's Acts chapter 5, where they actually said, look, this is what we're going to give, and that's all of it. But if you're not making it up, that's the same instances of those points. 2 Corinthians 6:14, that is being unequally yoked. Look, you can have a job where you're going to be surrounded by unsavory individuals. That was one of the first things. Basically, I was 14. Micah had already been working at the Harris Nursery. And one of the things that my dad said to me was, he said, to get ready, he said, because they're all going to be making jokes about how clean you and Micah are. And he said, they'll probably call you stuff like preacher, they'll do this, they'll do that. And I can't remember, they say, you want to smoke? Knowing full well I don't smoke. But you know what? They're probably wishing they don't smoke. And you ask people, would you encourage your kids to smoke like you do? And almost everybody will say, no, I do not. But what is it? It works on people, doesn't it? For someone to come in, they're not doing these things, and guess what, man? We were not nearly as involved in trouble as they were. And I'm saying Micah brought me in, his brother, and the other dude brought his brother in, and that brother would go behind the gas station and smoke pot on his lunch break. And you know what they trusted him to do on the workplace? Not a thing. That dude couldn't do anything except pick stuff up. You ain't touching nothing. That's unequally yoked if we let those atmospheres then take us away from the kingdom. But you know what? You can be there. You can, Matthew chapter 5, you can be salt to them. You can be light to those individuals. But the moment that the JOB starts taking us away from the worship, that's when you become unequally yoked. People say, well, I think it's wrong for a Christian to be married to a non-Christian. If you become unequally yoked, where they're actually keeping you from fulfilling your responsibilities, that's wrong. But think about 1 Peter chapter 3. He says that the wives who have unbelieving husbands may by their conversations win them to the truth. Well, if it was a sin for them to enter in that relationship anyways, how are they going to teach their lost spouse? You don't have to be unequally yoked, but we do have some brethren who actually are making the choice to be unequally yoked, just like Reuben. Now, think about this. They made a bad decision as far as them coming to their feast day. They made it almost impossible for themselves. They have to leave early, which means they got to collect their harvest at an earlier date. But look what Moses responds to these people in Numbers 32. They said, we want the land right now, and we don't want to have to go across the Jordan, which means we don't want to have to fight. And that's what Moses said. Moses said to them, if you will do this thing, if you will go armed before the Lord to war, and will go all of you armed over Jordan before the Lord until he hath driven out his enemies from before him, and the land be subdued before the Lord, then afterwards ye shall return and be guiltless before the Lord and before Israel, and this land shall be your possession before the Lord. But if you will not do so, behold, you have sinned against the Lord, and be sure that your sin will find you out. They said, we want it right now. And he said, y'all going to still fight with us? We have individuals who see the truth, and really, they obey the gospel, but all they're doing is just salving their conscience for a moment of time. Why? Because they have no intention of actually fighting with us. Man. What's the point then? He said, here, you could get the land plot, but if you don't go to war with us, don't expect God to take care of you. These people would have just been out there with their cattle, and we've already been out in our study of Kings, 10 tribes to 2. How does it favor it? People were thinking, we ain't got the numbers. There's going to be nothing out there by themselves. He says, y'all going to show up to fight? Yes, we will. They say in Numbers 32, yes, we will. Now think about this. Our fight as Christians is not a momentary battle, is it? So in Numbers 32, when you talk about taking the land, would the people of Reuben, would they be able to, after they took the land, the book of Joshua was over, would the people of Reuben be able to say, look, we helped y'all get it, now we're done? Can they do that? Look at this. Judges 4. It's exactly what they did. Now, Heber, the Kenite, which was of the children of Hobeb, the father-in-law of Moses, had severed himself from the Kenites, and pitched his tent under the plain of Zanim, which is by Kadesh. And they showed Sisera, and Sisera is an enemy of the nation of Israel, that Barak the son of Abinoam was gone up to Mount Tabor. And Sisera gathered together his chariots, even 900 chariots of iron, and all the people that were with him, from Harosheth, even the Gentiles, unto the river Kishon. Now look what's happening. In this section, you have, how are we going to pronounce her name? Deborah, it's Judges 4. And Barak. They're going to fight against this man, Sisera. He's a captain of the enemy's army. And look how they travel. Here it is. Barak and Deborah are coming down from Kadesh, right here to Mount Tabor. So they're already having to travel to do this battle. Here's the river that he's talking about. You can't really see that blue. But Sisera comes in and they're going to fight right around here. Now look at this map. You can't even see where Reuben is. Reuben is way down south. Look, this is right up here, or this one actually would be. This is the Sea of Galilee. They're very high up north. Reuben is way down south, and when the battle gets done and they kill Sisera, look what Deborah says. The princes of Issachar were with Deborah, even Issachar and also Barak. He was sent on foot into the valley for the divisions of Reuben. There were great thoughts of heart. Why abodest thou among the sheepfolds, to hear the bleatings of the flock? For the divisions of Reuben there were great searchings of heart. They full well expected these people to travel way up north to help us fight the battle, and they said, we got to tend to our cattle. Now, people today who say, oh, I appreciate what y'all are doing, and you don't help us fight the battle, you do not appreciate what we're doing. Amen. You don't give us any help. Look at what he actually says in Numbers 32. What actually happens to those type of individuals. Oh, we appreciate what you're doing. Are you going to show up and help us? I can't be down there. Look what he says. Verse number 7. Wherefore discourage you the heart of the children of Israel from going over to the land which the Lord hath given them. And you're going to find another passage when you get to the book of Deuteronomy where they're about to really go into the land. It's about to start. And Joshua's going to tell the people, if you're scared, go home. Because we don't need to hear that stuff. We're ready to go into this fight. We have prepared ourselves with courage and bravery, and anybody who's going to say, I don't know about this, you need to get out of here. And that's what Moses is saying to the people here. You've just discouraged everybody by saying, we don't want to go across the Jordan River. Why would you want to go across the Jordan River? You must not have confidence that we can actually take the land. You don't think that God's going to provide a land that can take care of your cattle? And think about this. We've already seen this before. This is exactly what happened with Abraham and Lot. Their substance got so big that they could not dwell together. So Abraham said, look, 2 pieces of land, you decide where you're going to go. Lot looks over the well-watered plains of Jordan, and he took all of his stuff down there, and what happened? He gets kidnapped, gets messed up with Sodom, loses his family members in the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and here these people of Reuben, not helping in the battle, making it super hard on themselves just to simply get to the feast days. Now think about this. These people weren't ever saying, when they took the land on the other side of the river, they weren't saying, well, we don't want to be counted, outside of the nation of Israel. And what do people today who don't work do? Well, we're not saying that we don't want to be involved with the Church of Christ. You want to claim the name, you don't want to do the work. And that's just unacceptable according to Moses, according to the New Testament. And we look at these statements that are made, it should be noted. Individuals who are well-bodied, sound mind, that don't help us, just go ahead and mark yourself down with Reuben. Think about this. Do you know what a transfer payment is as far as our government speaking? We've already talked about our physical investments. Here's another idea. Our transfer payments, basically you paying taxes, go to people who the government deems cannot provide for themselves. Are they on disability? Have they got something where they can't find a job? That's what that is, a transfer payment. You take your money and the government gives it to somebody else. Now, how do you feel about that? There's some people I think it's good to help them. I think they're honest individuals who need the help. Are there people working the system? Yes. Don't get lost on that. I'm saying God has a system in his kingdom of transfer payments. Look at John 15:2. Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away, and every branch that beareth fruit, he purgeth it, that it bringeth forth more fruit. A member of the body of Christ who does not bear fruit, and we could go two ways with this. I'm saying I've heard brethren say, how do you know that fruit in John 15 is talking about converts versus spiritual fruit in Galatians chapter 5? Can I say this? I've never seen anybody who was bearing the fruit in Galatians chapter 5 who wasn't making converts. Or at least trying. If you're making those fruit of the Spirit to abide in yourself, you're going to be talking to people about the gospel. We just dealt with that, didn't we? But he says if you're not doing it, he takes you out of the vine. And what happens? Look at Matthew 21:43. Therefore say I unto you, the kingdom of God shall be taken from you and given to a nation, bringing forth the fruits thereof. God's system of a transfer payment. If you're not producing, he takes your lot and he gives it to somebody who will produce. And just like we said at the beginning, when we put that formula on the board, he said, that's not very interesting. As we talk about these spiritual investments, and somebody says, I don't want to be out in the hot during the summertime at the tent meeting. Hell will be a lot hotter, won't it? And they say, that's just not interesting to me. What's interesting to us is when we want to pray, we have some confidence that God's going to hear our prayer.
Man.
That's a spiritual investment. I'm saying we got family members, and it's not even that. When you get sick, you want to pray. When you hit hard times, you want to pray. Where is your spiritual bank account? Is it way up here or is it way down here? Have you actually overdrawn your spiritual bank account? Do you even have one anymore? Because we're showing right here that God can take your account, give it to somebody else, and he says they're going to do more for me. Why have this lesson? Y'all, we are involved right now. We already went door knocking Tuesday night, and let me say this, as I said earlier, well-bodied individual, able-bodied, who don't help us. We already saw what was said about the tribe of Reuben. Well-bodied men in this congregation who do not help us are Matthew 21:43. It's taken from you, given to somebody else. Now think about this. You may not be able to knock doors. We knocked doors Tuesday night, and I'm saying, if you look at 1 Samuel 17, Jackie did on Tuesday night exactly what King David did before he was a king. They're out in battle, and Jesse tells David, take the bread and the cheese down to these soldiers and refresh them. We come in, and she's got a nice meal prepared for us. Why? We just been working. Thank you. Man. Look at Eugene. I don't know how old Eugene is, but Eugene has already told Micah, I don't know how much door knocking I'm going to be able to do. That's fine. What can Eugene do? Eugene can drive the bus that drops us off neighborhood to neighborhood where we get it going in a fluid system. Look, if we're working and you're working in the kingdom, there's no sense of wasting time, right? Ian will tell you how a government job goes. People wasting time. We're on the Lord's time. We're on the Lord's dollar. We ought to be working efficiently. There's just no sense. And we're just going to do nothing, walk back to the car. Why? Let's work efficiently. Let's have Eugene, individuals like Eugene that will get us door to door. Look, we're trying to spread the truth. Y'all, it does not make sense. I was talking to a Methodist man, and he said to me that he and several friends of his get together, and every year they give a scholarship over to somebody at PHY because they said, we want to help somebody out with their education. Why not help somebody out with their spiritual education?
Man.
And I'm saying we're not in here collecting a pool of money saying we're fixing to dump it on one individual. We are getting out, giving everybody a chance to hear the truth. And this guy, I remember, Mark was talking to him, and that's not actually his house. He was on the job. And Mark said, if you want to take a break, I'll talk to you. Well, sure, I want to take a break. I may not want to talk to you though, Mark. See how that goes? But we're taking advantage of every opportunity that we get. Why? Because that person is a soul. Whoever Ian's going to talk to is a soul, and I'm saying, this audience, that's Sheila, that's Ruby, Eugene, Jim Brewer up on the ladder. Souls that need the truth at one time, they got it, and now what do we do with it? We start giving it out to other people. Spiritual investments. That's the thing, isn't it? People are saying, you don't just get the money and hold on to it, and you can't, can you? It's always going out. But we get the truth and we hold on to it. We should be dispensing it, and that's the investment. Putting it into other people who can then turn and teach other people. Man, it can be done. History will show us that it can be done. Just like this book, there's a book called Arkansas Angels, and there was a man named Joe Blue who taught the truth in Arkansas. And for the whole 30 years that he was in that county, there was not one denomination. People say, I'd love to live down there. I'd love to be in a community where there were no denomination. You know what you got to do? You got to work to get them out. Which means you got to talk to people on their doorstep to let them know that their pastor is teaching them lies. That's what we were talking about in the Bible class. It's not any easier getting on TV and telling the whole community any easier than it is to be on a porch with that lady that I met last week, Jeanette Robertson. Got 3 of her grandkids sitting on the front porch with her, and I'm telling them the Baptist church is not teaching you all the truth. That is so uncomfortable. And just, I'm saying for her, sweet lady, to where she doesn't bite my head off. Mark on that same street had somebody slam the door in his face. You don't have to work for it. We would love to have the spiritual atmosphere, but it's going to take a lot of work, and that's why we look at this morning. I know if we look at this information, we'd all say, I do not want to be like the people of Reuben, put my material things before my spiritual. But I'm saying the weather has warmed up. We can get out, we can not. The tent meeting is coming. Are we pretty sure for tight squeeze? Are we looking at other places? Okay, we're saying pretty sure for tight squeeze. People hearing the truth, and we would say, I don't want to be like Reuben. Then don't. Don't be like Reuben. Be the faithful individuals who come to the battle and help us out. And it will count for you as a spiritual investment. And I'm saying, we've been involved in tent meetings, and you say it's coming, it's hot, you're working, but I have heard so many people say, when you're in the tent meeting, why do we only do 2-week tent meetings? Why don't we do more than this? Why don't we, and it's saying, when you're in it, you love it. And I'm saying that's how it is with investing in it. When you start seeing it come back, you love it. But when you're doing the investing, you're saying, man, I'd like to have that. No, it's going to help you out in the end. So this morning, as we look at this information, great loads of information in the Bible for us to look at. Put yourself in their shoes. And this is the thing that we do. When we read the Bible, we put ourselves in Moses' shoes, don't we? We say, boy, I'll be the person who tells them, you didn't do nothing but hurt the whole cause. I would rather put myself in the other person's shoes and say, don't be that. Let somebody else be Moses, but you make sure, and I make sure that I'm not being Reuben. That's what I'd like to do. I don't want to be the person who brought the whole nation down. Joshua 7, I don't want to be Achan, who caused the whole army of Israel to lose their battle. Does everybody want to be a Joshua? In theory. But you know what? I'll tell you, it is difficult. It's difficult to do these meetings, make sure everybody's feeling good, and we're all working hard together. You know what? That's Exodus 18. That's where Moses' father-in-law says, you don't need to do this by yourself. So many men that can plug into a tent meeting, you're helping so many people. Man, let me take a little of that load. Thank you. That's why we need this. This morning, I would encourage you, if you didn't do it, man, writing these scriptures down, what we looked at in Joshua 3:15, Joel 2, that's some good information to show denominational folk. So I would encourage everybody to go home today and start looking at those passages again, work it out in our memory so that we get ready for this. What? On the doorstep. This morning, let's think about these things. Let's encourage ourselves as we stand and sing the song of encouragement.